Hi, I'm Armin Budish, your host today, and I have two very special people with me. One is Dr. Laura Bloomberg, president of Cleveland State University, and second is Dr. Michael Baston. He's the president of Cuyahoga Community College. I'll tell you, education drives the region, and their two institutions drive education. So it's a very special day to have them here today to talk with us about education in the community. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Why don't we start with you, Dr. Bloomberg. Tell us a little bit about yourself first. Give us a little background.
Well, I've been here in Cleveland since August of 2021, and I became provost shortly thereafter, and served as provost here for 8 years before I was named president in late April of last year. So I'm heading into my second full academic year as CSU president. Prior to that, I was a lifelong Minnesotan. I served at the University of Minnesota in many different capacities over many years. So I'm a tenured faculty member in public policy and administration, but I have a PhD in educational policy and administration. So at one point in my career, I was a high school principal, but most recently I've been serving as a dean of a policy school before moving to Cleveland.
Very impressive background. Thank you. Dr. Baston, tell us about yourself.
Well, sure. I'm from New York, where I previously served as the president of Rockland Community College in New York for about 5 years. And prior to that, I was vice president of student affairs and an associate provost at LaGuardia Community College. And it's been a wonderful journey here being at Tri-C. I've been here now a little bit over a year. And a lot of my work around the country has been working with 2- and 4-year institutions to build strong relationships and pipelines for those educational opportunities. From a background perspective, I started off as a college attorney, so I represented educational corporations, religious institutions, and nonprofits before going into higher ed administration.
So you're a lawyer.
I am a lawyer.
We won't hold that against him.
Yeah.
Retired.
That's great. Well, you've both talked about collaboration, the importance of creating an alliance between the two schools. Dr. Bloomberg, tell us what that means, what you're doing.
Well, first I want to talk about that on a personal level, because I think it is really, it's special to me, and I think important to the region that Dr. Baston and I have become really strong colleagues, but also really good friends. I learn a lot from Michael. I think that the experience that you bring from higher education is different than mine, and in that way we learn a lot about what we can do together in new and different ways that I hadn't thought about. So the foundation of this partnership is really strong. The potential, I fundamentally believe that the potential for the region is amplified when Tri-C and CSU find the optimal level of partnership. And that means that we serve our collective student body in the best possible way for the betterment of the entire region.
Is there a benefit to helping students prepare for the in-demand jobs that are out there right now?
I will defer to my colleague to talk about that, because he describes this so beautifully, the preparation of our students depending on what the market is demanding.
One of the important pieces of thinking about the future is to ensure that people are on a path, that not only do they get on a path, but a path that's going to lead them to the kind of economic future and destiny they desire. And that means they have to have support, they have to get on an academic path, they've got to stay on a path and build momentum. They also have to learn and to grow their knowledge and experience. And so in working between our two institutions, we're very, very mindful of the ways in which that path can track from Tri-C and into CSU and back and forth in some ways. So what we have found is that we are so connected on the things that matter. Together we're the People's College. We are the public institutions that make democracy possible. And so it's wonderful to have a great partner who we share so many things, and particularly that personal relationship. It makes a big difference.
How does a 2-year school fit with a 4-year school, though? How do they come together?
Well, when you think as an example of the work that you do at a certain level in your business preparation in your 2-year school, transferring into the 4-year institution gives you that next leg of preparation. And there are so many specific connections with respect to the career expectations of our students and how together we build that path, that the more beginning level courses and experiences happen at Tri-C, and those more detailed and further along experiences often happen at CSU.
You know, I believe that there are students and will continue to be students who want to enter a 4-year baccalaureate program right away. There are a large number of students who do not see that path. They see their path towards viable, practical training and a shorter term experience so that they can enter the workforce and make a living wage. And I don't think that we should preference one over the other. There's a lot of right paths into adulthood, into the rest of our working life. There will be students who will enter a 2-year program and enter the workforce and be quite content in that place for a period of time, who at some point may want to come back, get a bachelor's degree, or in the case of the two of us, advanced degrees. And we ought to be able to create pathways for all of those opportunities. I also think it's important, and we've talked about this a lot, that there are skill level training that's available in a place like Tri-C that's not available at a place like CSU. And I think that there's an untapped market of people with bachelor's degrees who also want additional certification. The engineer who, in their efforts to build and create things, really wishes they had some fundamental and safe welding skills is the example that I think we see nationally. There's a trend where that's happening, where people are going back to a community college. So I think it's not just a one-way path out of high school into Tri-C, into CSU. That's one path, but there are also circular paths that we have to be aware of and accommodating.
You both talked about the affordability of college, which is a hot topic nationally right now. It's been a hot topic and it's important. You're both among the more reasonably priced schools in 2 years, 4 years. But together you can really provide a good education at a relatively fair, reasonably low cost. How does that work, the 2 plus 2?
Well, think about some of the ways in which we're building programs together amongst our faculties. Think about some of the ways in which we are actually using programmatic dollars at both institutions to really bring the educational costs down for students. When you think about the kinds of experiences like our recent Mandel Award, where ultimately the honor students at Tri-C and the honor students at CSU, there's a clear, connected pipeline at a very cost-effective way to actually increase the knowledge base and pool of folks who ultimately stay right here in Cleveland. So those 2 plus 2, there'll be more of the kinds of programs that continue to usher students, regardless of their age, because just as Laura mentioned, the average age of my student is 26, so they're not right out of high school. But many of them know that the path to greater economic opportunities lies with at least the bachelor's degree. And
Another great example of how you're working together, tell us about Scholar House.
Right across the street from our metropolitan campus, very close to both institutions.
Walking distance from both of our campuses.
We will actually have housing for our single parents, so that while they're at CSU, while they're at Tri-C, they will be able to live in the Scholar House, have wraparound supports so that they can finish their education and that they can still raise their children and they can still find the path that works for them. And we are collaborating to ensure that all those residents of Scholar House really get the opportunity with the supports to succeed. That's not happening everywhere in the country, and this is one of those important relationships that we know will help all in our community.
Dr. Bloomberg, in our prior conversation, you talked about easing the transfers, the movement from Tri-C to Cleveland State. You said 4 points: access, intention, affordability, and belonging. Can you explain those?
Yes, let me back up and say that when President Baston, when Michael and I started talking together and really envisioning what was possible at a deeper level, Tri-C and CSU have long had a partnership, but we just had this vision that it could be much tighter and go much deeper. And every year for many years, our two institutions have hosted an MLK Day breakfast for the community. And we had said, well, what if we did more than that? Let's host this gathering for the community, but immediately following the breakfast, let's have a summit of our leadership teams. Bring them together and say, okay, these two presidents are working well together. How about our two admissions teams and our financial aid teams and our first year advising teams? Not only work together, but get to know each other so that we create seamless relationships deep into our organizational structure. By doing that, we can troubleshoot a lot of the barriers that we might not have known about that made for these seamless transitions. And that's where those 4 components came up. When those teams come together, can we think about smooth transitions for students from one campus to the other and perhaps back again, because we're thinking about all of those things. And I want to, the last one you mentioned was belonging.
Right.
We know, particularly post-pandemic, when young adults and people in their mid-20s are coming to us after a lot of trauma, a lot of financial insecurity in their lives, there is a deep need to create a sense of belonging for students to persist and be successful in post-secondary education. And when we think about that across our two institutions is when we can think about things like Scholar House, the single parent who can't contemplate post-secondary education because they can't afford the child care that they would need. Well, if we prioritize the person's belonging, we care about you and we care about your well-being and the well-being of your family, then we create opportunities for them to be successful. Just parenthetically, I got a briefing on Scholar House today and learned that we have over 200 applicants for, and it's not even open yet. It won't open until later this fall, but there is absolute crying need and demand for that service. So.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that, both of you. All right, let's switch gears for a minute to talk about your impact in the general community. Higher education has all kinds of impacts in the community, both financial and as we're talking, support for people. Can you describe CSU's impact in our community?
Well, first, I will talk about CSU. I will talk first, though, about the impact of both of our institutions together. We are, I'd say, proudly and unabashedly proclaiming that we are a huge part of the economic engine that drives Northeast Ohio. We create the employers that this region needs. For CSU, we completed an economic impact study last year, and we learned a lot of things. First of all, the vast majority of our students who graduate from CSU stay in the region. So they stay and become a part of this workforce. 87% of our students are still here well over 5 years past graduation. We also know that we are ranked #1 among all public and private four-year institutions in the state on a social mobility measure that the Brookings Institution uses. So you can imagine, really what we're saying is we're taking students across a larger delta, economic delta, than any other four-year institution. So we're lifting people out of poverty, and they are staying in this area and contributing to the workforce. So I would say that means we're changing the circumstances of entire families and creating workers who are prepared to do what we need them to do in this area. When we do that in partnership is when it really is strong, I imagine.
When you mentioned that you did an economic study, there's actually numbers relate to this? That
Yes, substantial numbers. This gave us the measures of the cost impact of what we do. We know that $1 invested yields a $19 benefit to society. $1 into CSU, 19 out to the society. 1 to 7 for individuals. So we beat the stock market.
Not bad.
But by quite a lot in terms of social impact. And we also know that we contribute over $3 billion to the Northeast Ohio economy.
Does
So
that include all the hundreds of millions of dollars on facilities and new buildings and all this stuff that Cleveland
Yes.
State's been building? Wow.
it also talks about the ways that we drive visitors to the region who spend money in the area. The number of students now that we've tripled our on-campus housing who are spending money in the downtown area, who are animating the downtown area by living there.
Dr. Baston, you have some numbers too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Very similar story. I mean, we serve 41,000 students in this community. We have an economic impact of about $1.5 billion, and we have an $11 ratio for every $1 invested, $11 in return. Primarily because many of our students are part-time. So 70% of our students are part-time students. It takes them a little bit longer to complete their education. They start at a different level in terms of the kinds of positions that they have initially. But over time, quite frankly, as they continue to grow in their business, they move quite well. The other thing that we're particularly proud of is the work we do with entrepreneurs. And so over the last 10 years through our Goldman Sachs program, we have helped over 900 businesses grow their business right here in Northeast Ohio. We have about 30,000 businesses in small businesses in Northeast Ohio, 10,000 small businesses right here in Cleveland. Our ability to continue to create a pipeline of opportunities for small business is something that we're very, very proud of. We are building the entrepreneurial class in this community with all of our research around the gig economy and sort of incorporating the gig worker and getting them skilled up to actually make a greater impact in the economics of the community. So there are all of these factors at play that enable us to make meaningful contributions to the economic destiny of the region.
So important, and the economic impact, is felt in many different ways, as you've both mentioned. But Dr. Bloomberg, you mentioned beyond that the human piece as well. How your schools enrich the lives of the people of this region. Do you want to just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So when you think about our actual campus footprint, we think about the east side ending near the highway where Mather Mansion is and going all the way up to Playhouse Square. Well, in fact, that's not true. We go into Playhouse Square and increasingly with Scholar House towards Tri-C. So we have a large footprint in this area, and we are, we have the only freestanding film school in the state of Ohio. We have a communication department that's a remarkable contribution in terms of the creation of journalistic material for the region, including what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. This
today.
is a great example.
Yeah.
We're going to have students here doing this, learning the ins and outs of directing, producing, editing, et cetera.
Exactly, exactly. So all of these ways that we create, I would say, the circumstances of a community that lives life well. That's what I think. Our arts, our culture, our journalism, our storytelling. Then we have a whole urban studies department, a number of people in Mayor Bibb's cabinet and in County Executive Chris Ronane's cabinet come out of our Levin College of Public Affairs and Education. And we have an urban studies program that's still ranked in the top 10 in the country. So we are producing planners who understand cities, who understand urbanicity and things like the interface of the built environment and quality of life for people across all income brackets. That's essential to a thriving greater Cleveland area.
I think it's such an advantage here because here we have urban policy being taught in an urban setting.
In an urban setting. I like to say, the Greater Cleveland Partnership uses the expression, we're a great city on a great lake. We are the Northeast Ohio's only public urban 4-year research institution in this great city on a great lake where there's also a Federal Reserve Bank and, to Michael's point, a disproportionately high number of small entrepreneurial businesses. So we've got an ecosystem ripe for us to produce the kind of next generation, not only workforce, but community citizens that we need for the area.
And we didn't just get here. You know, CSU.
Well, you and I did.
We got here. But our institutions have always been that beacon of hope in this region. 59 years, 60 years at Tri-C. We have helped over 1 million people in that 60 years get the start to build the region. And that is impressive when you think about the fact that we are only beginning. We are thinking deeply about the Center for the Future of Work that we're building, where we're really thinking about what does work look like with a more AI-enabled workforce? What does work look like when we have employees that really are beginning through their agency developing a different set of terms with employers? What does it look like in terms of what the balance of expectations in the workforce are? It's a whole different level of conversations that we are leading as we work with businesses and industries in this community to understand that the workforce is changing, innovation is required, expectations are now shifting. And if we will have that vibrant economy in this region, working with educational institutions that can help them as partners, thought partners, will make a big difference as we move forward.
I'm the Levin Executive in Residence here at the Cleveland State Public Policy and Education College, and the late Mort Mandel used to say, it's all about the who. The people, they are what drives everything. And you both are new to Cleveland and to your jobs, but it's so exciting to hear what you have on your plates and how you're moving things forward and how you're moving things forward together, which is really the secret sauce, I think. And so I think we here in Cuyahoga County are really in for an exciting period with the two of you as our leaders. So thank you both for coming in and talking to us about the state of education here in Cuyahoga County. Thank you both very much.
Thanks very much. It was fun.
Thank you. Great to be with you.